Russia doesn't have a nuclear-powered missile. I don't think any country's got a nuclear-powered missile because that brings difficulties with it. So, the SSCX Skyfall, or the Russian translates into Storm Petrel missile, is a cruise missile with a nuclear-powered ramjet engine on it that allegedly has a range up to about 20,000 kilometers, so 12,500 miles, and therefore can stay in the air for long periods of time. That's what those that have tried to theorize about what this Russian missile would look like and anything else have said. The test that's happened, the Russians say it's successful. We have to take them at their word. The missile went some 14,000 kilometers, according to the Russians, so 8,700 miles. Comes after a number of unsuccessful tests of the missile, including one where the missile blew up, killing at least 5 scientists and causing radiation contamination in a particular area. And that's the big thing about anything that's nuclear powered. If it's nuclear powered at one end as the propulsion, and you've got something that goes bang at the other end, then you've just created a radiological or dirty bomb. And that's what would happen if this was used with a conventional warhead in it. So the only way that you could practically use it is with a nuclear warhead in it. And actually, Russia's intercontinental ballistic missiles and its medium-range ballistic missiles can do the job anyway and probably do it better. We'll not see it in use in Ukraine. If Vladimir Putin decided to use that in Ukraine, the fact that it is a dirty bomb if he has a conventional warhead on it. He's not going to use a nuclear warhead. To create that level of radiological damage and damage to the environment would turn Putin into an immediate pariah, and he would lose the tacit support he's got from China, from India, and other countries. And he is concerned about that at the moment with the US sanctions on Russian oil outputs. He won't want to do anything that will sully those relationships even more. Russia's vast, so if you had one of these that went bang, it would put radiological material, and if it's a nuclear engine, this is very nasty radiological material, plutonium or enriched uranium, spread it over quite a wide area. But that wide area, 1 square kilometer, 2 square kilometers, in the size that Russia is, Russia could deal with that sort of area being contaminated. And in fact, there's probably areas like that being contaminated. And again, I've studied nuclear science as part of my degree and as part of my master's degree. To be able to create such a small nuclear powered engine that fits in a missile for the missile to fly, you're not going to be able to put the radiation shielding around the reactor that you would expect to try and keep it safe from people. So this thing is almost certainly going to have a big nuclear trail coming out the back of it, where it can be tracked by very sensitive sensors that may or may not happen to be looking out for these sorts of things around the world, either from space or from nuclear sniffing aircraft, of which the United States and other countries have got lots of. And therefore, I think if one of these was fired, it would stand out like a beacon, flashing radiation as it's going around. So any stealth that it's trying to achieve by flying close to the ground and flying to the contours of the ground would be lost by the fact that it could be seen from space, and you could probably see the trail and track it from space. It's all about messaging, and we've seen this with a number of other weapon systems. We saw not the May Day parade this year, but May Day parade last year. The Russians brought out the T-14 Amata tank. If you looked at the T-14 Amata tank and the specifications of it, no Western tank could destroy it, and it could destroy anything that's out there. It's never been fielded. In fact, a couple of them broke down for the parade, and it didn't appear at this year's parade. So Putin's got a habit of producing these pie-in-the-sky weapon systems that, on paper, he says can do this, do that, do the other, and it's all about scaring people. To the non-initiative, those that don't know about nuclear technology, don't know about weapons technology, and all the rest of it, hearing a nuclear-powered missile that can reach anywhere in the world from within Russia is something that people will understandably be frightened of, and therefore he's achieving that effect. anyone who knows about weapons and all the rest of it knows that Russia's intercontinental ballistic missiles, medium-range ballistic missiles, can do exactly the same job, much more effectively and much faster. Definitely uniquely stupid, and this is purely from a scientific perspective. The fact that you produce something that will, have a trail that you can track quite easily, and a little flashing beacon on it to satellites in space saying, here I am," and it's going to be flying subsonically. So you've got plenty of time to get aircraft, conventional aircraft, close to it to shoot it down. It's got no military utility whatsoever. There is an arms race that's going on. I don't think the US will come up with something similar like this. I think the Western reaction will be senior military commanders rolling around on the floor, and hopefully we get a video of that when they look at this and send that to Moscow, because that would be our information operation back to Moscow. It's a joke like that. It is not a serious weapon system, and Putin knows that if he fired it, it has to be nuclear warhead, and therefore he's because otherwise, what's the point in contaminating an area just because you're using it as a propulsion system? And that's upping the ante enormously. And why use a missile that can be tracked easily when as intercontinental ballistic missiles fired from submarines or fired from as land-based systems can do the job much faster and are much harder to track? Not impossible, but an awful lot harder.